Hello everybody, CritCrab here with another story, this one about a DM who TPK'd the entire party, seemingly just to show them how much better his character builds were. Roll post. We were running the Kingmaker AP in Pathfinder and getting rather far into it. This takes place a bit after a friendly kingdom vanished. Our DM was actually really good. He could write decent homebrewed side quests that directly related to our characters. He could balance encounters really well, and he knew the rules inside and out. The problem, I guess, was that he knew he mastered all the material. For quite a while, he would make comments about our character builds and how we could improve them. And sometimes we would take his advice, but generally we did what we wanted. I myself was never a fan of min-maxing and preferred to play against type. Our DM never got visibly upset or admonished us for not making optimal builds, but every time we leveled up, it was clear he got more and more frustrated. Here is a very important facet of our campaign. For those who don't know, the Kingmaker AP has a lot of downtime. Months could go by with no story hook, and only one or two minor side quests would be available to pursue between kingdom building rounds. But we had been making a lot of progress in this downtime regardless. My ranger opened up a bar that wound up being the focal point of several plot hooks, so some of the bar's employees became rather important to the story. The alchemist had a magic mushroom operation under the keep and ran a drug trade with a small gang of kobolds, each of which he named. The cleric got married, I was the best man at the wedding, and his wife was expecting a baby. I can't quite remember what the rogue and barbarian had going on, but they were similarly investing in some personal projects and building relationships with NPCs. Back to the story. The rival kingdom Pitax had sent assassins to take us out. We found out about this somehow, but we had assumed that we would at some point just get ambushed by some baddies on the road. And yes, that is essentially what happened. We were on our way to investigate why everyone in the friendly kingdom disappeared when one night, while we were sleeping, the cleric on the watch got shot with a bullet, and then backstabbed by an invisible rogue, and then hit with a ray attack. Then the DM does what I think ultimately doomed the entire party. He picked up his DM screen and tossed it aside. "Roll for initiative," he says. I can't remember exactly how the combat went, but it was not pretty. The cleric started off combat basically dead on his feet, and I had no time to put my armor on. I remember that a huge half-orc with a great axe charged our alchemist, who was still on the ground after waking up, from off the map, and hit him with a full round attack. I swear that thing cleared like 80 feet in one turn. The alchemist died immediately, of course. On the cleric's turn, he decides to channel energy, which turned out to be pointless because immediately afterwards he got critted by the sniper, which basically blew a hole in him. Dead. Then we got blindsided by an alchemist who was also invisible, who caught 3 of us with a bomb. So the alchemist the cleric gave his life to save died again. I sent my wolf to go locate and attack the sniper, but it got brutalized by a couple of summoned infernal minions. The combat dragged on a little bit longer before we came to this realization. The group of assassins was comprised of each of our character classes. There was a cleric who kept summoning demons and debuffing us, a sprinting, pouncing barbarian, a crit monkey rogue with dual kukris, a gnome alchemist, and we could only assume the sniper, who we never found, was my ranger counterpart. We were fighting an optimized version of us. These were the builds that the DM had been suggesting we play the entire time, and he was using them against us. I think the DM soon realized the huge problem he caused, because he started having the assassins take unnecessary actions like taking turns to heal any tiny amount of damage we did. But without the ability to fudge dice rolls, he couldn't justify having the assassins hesitate every round. And if he put the screen back, it would basically be an admission that he would be fudging his rolls from then on. I can only imagine that his aim for removing the screen was to show us that his builds could beat ours fairly. I'm sure he didn't intend for the encounter to kill us and would have them retreat at some point, but I could never figure out what his exit strategy was. He must have just grossly underestimated how strong he made these guys. We did manage to down the rogue and barbarian, but eventually the TPK came. We took a break, and I asked, "What the hell was that?" Then the DM said something like, "Well, if a king wants to assassinate a party, wouldn't it make sense to hire people who could do what you did, but better?" After all, they were technically our exact CR rating for whatever that's worth. He offered us an out, having the assassins accidentally leave our rogue alive since he was the last to go down, and for whatever reason forgetting to take any of our money and magical loot. Problem was, the cleric was dead since his body was mutilated because he took massive damage and we used a critical hit deck that messed him up. And this was a real problem because the cleric was the f***ing king, and we had no idea where to get a resurrection spell. And on top of that, the rogue was basically stranded in the middle of nowhere with 4 bodies, one not entirely whole, and somehow had to make the 5-day trek back to our city through the wyvern-infested mountains while wounded and leading 4 other horses with his friends tied onto their backs. We thought of every way to try and save our characters, including having a session where we play a rescue party that comes to our party's aid with scrolls of raised dead. But this just begged the question of why the other seasoned group of adventurers would just leave us all intact when they knew we could just be raised by our subjects later. No matter what we thought of, it just sounded more and more like cheese. We concluded that the only fair way to continue would just be to make new characters. But we hated that idea most of all. A new party would mean starting from scratch in the kingdom without any of the relationships or projects we'd been working on for months. We had so many things to look forward to with our characters. We had been coming up with detailed plans for the kingdom and our individual enterprises, and now we had no connection to any of it. I would never even get to meet my godchild, damn it. Eventually, we decided to start up a new temporary game until we could figure something out. We never went back to the Kingmaker campaign. End post. It's obvious that the DM did not mean to go as far as he did with attacking the party, and that he didn't intend a TPK. But if that's the case, why kill the cleric and alchemist so quickly? It's especially sad because judging by how let down they were that they wouldn't get to enjoy the awesome plots their characters were experiencing, it sounds like they were having a lot of fun up until now and that this event just jumped entirely out of the blue. I suppose bad DMs can have good moments just as good DMs can have really bad moments. From here on, this is just my personal theory and is in no way fact, but it seems to me that it went a bit like this. The DM is skilled and knows how to make a fun game for the players, and the players are also having a good time and everything is cool. But maybe the DM is a bit of a power gamer. Seeing people play unoptimized builds that don't have maxed out stats is something that really bothers him. So he recommends different builds to try and fix the perceived, but not real problem. Probably getting more and more blunt as time goes on. His pleas being ignored, he had to resort to one final measure to prove that his builds were better and that the party should play as his personal character builds once and for all. But here's the thing. Power gaming and building the most powerful characters is fine and good. I'll be the first one to stick my neck out and say that while it's not to my personal taste, I don't have a problem with min-maxers or people who get their kicks by making the most powerful character they can. But on the other claw, this isn't World of Warcraft. Being the best and most optimized version of your character won't determine whether or not you can enjoy D&D. And there's even some charm in playing an unoptimized character, like an orc wizard or a dwarf rogue. Anyways, the party should just remember that if they need a new DM, they should just find someone that can do what he can do, but better. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Till next time.